My late-night Uber driver suddenly pulled over and said he needed to tell me something because he recognized my address from a case file he wasn't supposed to have seen. It was almost 1 a.m., a routine ride home from the airport after a delayed flight. The driver, an older man, quiet for most of the trip, suddenly pulled into a gas station parking lot without explanation, turned around, and asked if he could speak to me directly for a moment. I nearly reached for the door handle, heart pounding, assuming the worst. Instead, he told me, hands gripping the wheel, that he used to work as a records clerk for a small private investigation firm years earlier, before switching to driving full-time after the company shut down. He recognized my address, he said, from a case file that had crossed his desk almost 2 years ago, one involving surveillance photos of my house. I sat frozen in the back seat, unsure whether to believe him or bolt from the car entirely. He explained further, carefully, watching my reaction the whole time. The case had been opened by an insurance company, investigating a claim connected to a fire at a neighboring property 18 months earlier, one that had resulted in a large payout to my next-door neighbor. The investigators, he said, had quietly flagged inconsistencies in the neighbor's story, evidence suggesting the fire hadn't started accidentally the way it was reported. He said the file had eventually been closed without action, insufficient evidence to formally pursue fraud, and he'd always felt uneasy about it being buried, especially since it involved a residential fire that could easily have spread to my own home, given how close the properties sat together. I asked him why he was telling me this now, 2 years later, in a gas station parking lot at 1 a.m. He said simply that he'd seen my address come up in his app that night, remembered the file immediately, and decided he couldn't in good conscience drop me off without at least giving me the chance to look into it myself, especially since the same neighbor still lived right beside me. Here's the twist that turned a strange late-night conversation into something far more serious. I contacted the insurance company directly the next morning, requesting information under a formal inquiry. They wouldn't share the closed file specifics, understandably, but a records supervisor did confirm, cautiously, that the case had technically never been fully closed. It had simply gone dormant due to a staffing shortage during the investigation, not because the suspicious findings had been resolved or cleared. My inquiry, apparently, was enough to get someone to actually reopen and finish reviewing the file. 3 months later, my neighbor was formally charged with insurance fraud and arson after investigators finally completed the analysis that had sat unfinished for nearly 2 years. It turned out he deliberately started that fire himself, hoping to collect on a struggling rental property he could no longer afford to maintain, apparently not considering, or not caring, how close the flames had actually gotten to my own house that night. I never got the Uber driver's last name. I tried finding him again through the app weeks later, hoping to properly thank him, but he'd apparently stopped driving for the platform entirely by then. I think about him often. A stranger who could have easily just driven me home in silence and said absolutely nothing at all. Instead, he pulled over at 1 a.m. to hand a stranger a piece of the truth he'd been quietly carrying for 2 years. Some of the most important information in your life arrives in the most ordinary, unexpected places. Sometimes it's a courtroom. Sometimes it's the backseat of a stranger's car at 1 a.m.